Hello, in this video we're going to talk about how to configure OSPF between a Juniper router and an IXIA. So the video will mainly focus on the configuration from an IXIA point of view. So my box here, the DUT, in this case is a Juniper, is connected via this port, which is a 100 gig port, to the IXIA, and I have this IP address allocated. Now let me quickly start configuring the IXIA. So when you open the IXIA web, you will have a kind of a screen like this. You click on add protocol, you choose Ethernet, then we choose the IP, and then we choose the protocol. In this case, the routing protocol will be OSPF version 2. And then I choose the port that is connected to my DUT from the IXIA. And once you have this, you pretty much have this kind of stack: Ethernet, IP, and OSPF. So the key things to start looking at is first the MTU. So you can see that the MTU given here is 1500. Now if I compare the MTU of the Juniper box, the MTU is actually 1514. The reason for that is this is including the L2 headers. So you can see the IP MTU is clearly displayed here and it is 1500, whereas the Ethernet MTU is 1514. So what I do first is to match this MTU value to the Juniper router's value to the IXIA. So that's the first step. So I make sure that is there. Next, on the IP stack, I'll have to just make sure that the IPs are correctly allocated. So I know that the subnet on the router is this one. So from the IXIA point of view, the gateway will be 100. The IXIA IP address, I will just say it as 20. The subnet mask is 24 as it is here as configured. After this, what we really need to do in terms of OSPF is there is a few key steps in OSPF. So the configuration for OSPF on the DUT router is I have it as area 0. The interface is allocated for OSPF to run on it, and it's a point-to-point interface. So I need to make sure that the OSPF interface configuration is also set accordingly. So first thing is the area ID is 0. You can see the network type here is broadcast. We have to change it to point-to-point because that's what I have on the DUT. And the key part apart from that is you also have to click on OSPF interfaces. If you go to all, you need to make sure that the MTU settings are matching the protocol MTU. So here you can see that the protocol IP MTU is 1500. So you need to make sure that this is also 1500, because if this value does not match, you will notice that the OSPF will not come up. So let me demonstrate that also. So now that it is all in place, I am just going to start the protocol and we will check if the OSPF adjacency is coming up or not. The Ethernet stack should start coming up. You can see the Ethernet stack is up, the IPv4 is up, and you can see the OSPF is also now up. So the state of OSPF is also displayed on the IXIA. It clearly says OSPF neighbor state is full. Now on the DUT box, Juniper in this case, you can see the show OSPF neighbor is also in full state. Now let me demonstrate what happens if you do not have the MTUs on the OSPF level matching. So then we can have a problem. So it becomes a key part to ensure that you have the right MTU here. So if I end up, let's say I put it with the one value higher, maybe 10 for example, for the sake of demonstration. So the OSPF database description MTU set to 1510. The reason why OSPF is not going to come up is because there is something called as validation of the received MTU. Now if you uncheck this, OSPF will come up even if the MTUs for the database description don't match. But in a traditional setup between two routers, the MTUs are going to be checked, so we keep this always enabled. Now if I start this now, you will see that the OSPF should not come up and it should stay in an Xstart state. You can see it's an exchange. It should not go beyond that. So if I check on the box here, Xstart here. Xstart indication is clear that the MTUs are not matching between the two endpoints when they are exchanging their OSPF database description packet. There is an MTU that is also shared. So that's why this session is not coming up. So now let me go back and I will probably stop only the OSPF, and then let me just change the MTU back to 1500 because that is the protocol MTU that is configured on the Juniper. So it is very important to make sure that when you look at on the Juniper side, you should not set this MTU to the OSPF database description MTU. What you really need to set is the protocol INET MTU, because that is the layer where OSPF is pretty much operating on. So hence I've now put it back to the protocol INET MTU, which is 1500, and now if I start the OSPF, the protocol should come up and work fine. So we will just give it, there you can see it's working fine. So the state is now gone back to full. Hope you find this useful. Bye for now.